This is the Team Objection Podcast for January 4th, 2022, episode 511. We're in the new year, and you know what that means. It's a tradition on the show at this point. We're doing the best of 2021. You also saw it in the episode title.
The best of list brought to you by Liquid Death.
The only
Murder
time
your
you can
thirst.
pay $3 for a can of water.
It murders thirst, and it kills plastic. That's what they say.
You
What do you
also,
think if we sponsor this? Do you think like we get pulled for erroneous sponsorships?
doubt.
Yeah, if the
Death
algorithms
is like, no.
if the algorithms get wise to it, maybe. Sometimes they can detect whether or not there's like promotional content in a video, and that changes what they might do to put advertising on it. But
Oh no, I just ruined us.
I just
Welcome to
don't understand-
2022.
We're done. I
How
don't understand the
exciting.
point- I just don't understand the point of Liquid Death when this is equally environmentally friendly, this plastic cup that I just reuse, and I drink from it.
Because this is aluminum. It's aluminum, and I guess that's better. And it's sparkling water, and it's a cool. I mean, look at the can.
It's sparkling disgusting.
It's sparkly
Never mind.
and like shiny and cool art.
That's gross.
Makes
I
you
don't
want to drink out of it.
Ugh.
look,
Besides, your thing can't do sparkling water. Mine does sparkling
Good.
water.
you
This-
have Jason
disgusting.
agreeing with you in the chat. I just want you to consider that.
See,
Look at that. You've already got a help in the chat for a
Now,
sponsorship.
Dave, I'll give you some credit. They do a regular spring water version. That one, I'm kind of like, well, that is just expensive water, like when I can get out of the tap. But this sparkling water, that you can't do that out of the tap. Actually, you probably can these days, but I can't.
But
personally.
that's sparkling water. It's like Perrier. It's gross. It's just disgusting.
No, next time you visit, I'll get you some. It's
Okay.
pretty good.
Did
Anyways,
you
best
remember
of list,
last-
Dave. This is like my favorite show of the year, every year. My favorite shows, telling Dave that he's wrong and doing my best of list. And I get to do both in one show at the end of the year, and it makes me so happy.
I've always been happy that at least 2 shows out of the year in a very quick succession are planned for us, and we don't even have to think about it going in. It's like,
Exactly.
all right, we know what we're doing here today.
Exactly.
I mean, for some of us, which is to say me and Sean and not you, we do put a decent amount of work into this episode. I don't just kind of show up and go, here's my 5. I have a list of like 20 that I pare down, and I look at the other 2 categories and I make those lists. And Sean probably spends more time on it than I do. So, but it is still nice to have the structure, so it's not like, well, we got to dream up what we're going to do for this episode. Let's play Family Feud.
And look, I know it doesn't matter, but as I get to the end of the year, it is extra motivation for me to play certain things or watch certain things because I know this episode's coming up. And that's fun for me. And it doesn't matter to anybody else, but I have fun with it, and that's partially important, right?
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy driving Sean nuts with all my picks.
They're usually not too bad. Although I like the idea of like you doing absolutely no work for this episode.
Just
At all.
wait
You're like,
until
well, I
today."
saw like 3 things the whole year. I'll just talk about those.
Oh, I did work. Don't worry, I did work. You're just not going to like my list. So
Okay, if you worked, that's progress, man. I like it. So how do we do this? Because I put in a lot of work. We just talked about it. I have lists for everything. Let's see. I have top 3 shows because I watch a lot of TV, but it's hard to always watch the TV of like the year of that stuff. I do a lot. Like I'm still getting through Breaking Saul is where I'm. Better Call Saul. I'm still getting through. But top 5 movies, top 5 games, some honorable mentions. I'm ready to go. You guys also have lists. Games, usually Chris. Dave, you do TV. No one watches movies in this house, so that's like my primary one, I guess.
Not the last 2 years, that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I'll get to that when I go to my list for movies. Because I saw 1 in theaters.
Oh, in theaters. Okay, but you saw Space Jam.
Yeah,
Also, I think Space Jam 2 was not the only movie you watched. That would have
that
been...
was the movie I watched this year. The only new movie.
That's really sad.
I just don't. I'm trying to think of like other movies that actually did come out this year, and I don't know. I'm disconnected. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You've
Not
always
that
been
sorry.
disconnected. You're connected to no one and nothing, except your family and your kids. Oh, that's nice.
Well, here you go.
Oh, hey, it's me. Best movies. So I actually think this year was a pretty good year for stuff. You guys agree or disagree? Like, okay, like the entertainment stuff. There's like COVID and the world is ending. But
Say that for the end.
yeah.
Because we are going to talk about how, because people seem to have negative impressions of 2021.
Okay.
And that's what overall review is for.
I like that. So I'll save it then. So here's my list. I even wrote it. I'm taking advantage of a whiteboard for the first time in my great handwriting. You can't. That's Wall Street Journal. Anyway, so okay.
You gave away his list.
So I wanted to give a couple shout outs because I think most people would expect Dune to be on a best movies list and No Time to Die. Those were my honorable mentions.
I didn't think No Time to Die was going to be on your list. I thought Dune was, which is why it's the picture that I used.
Oh, yeah. I didn't like it that much.
I didn't want to put Spider-Man up there because I knew that was going to be in your top 5, and I'm like, nah.
I feel like Dune is a movie where people who don't know a lot about movies are like, this movie's so good, but people who know a lot about movies love it. So I guess I'm just dumb. I thought it was really weird and like pandering and like it looked cool, but they just glossed over really kind of incoherent plot. And if you've read the book, the book is kind of incoherent, but I thought it was beautiful to look at without a lot of substance. And it's a part 1, so like who can tell? No Time to Die, it was good and I enjoyed it. It was one of the better Daniel Craig movies for sure. A great swan song for his Bond. But the villain was kind of lame, which I'm really sad about because I like that actor. But I'm not going to spend too much time on this. So my number 5 is Fear Street, which is really out of left field. I'm doing like what the Academy did in 2003 with Lord of the Rings movie. And I'm just giving an award for like the whole trilogy of the Fear Street movies that came out. Because they were really good. They're like slasher, but they're connected and they go through different periods of time. And 1776, Dave, was the one in like a summer camp. It was like the summer camp killer spoof.
First of all, 1976, not 1776.
That's what I meant.
No, I like that one better.
What 1776 was? Or
Benjamin
was it
Franklin
16?
on the run from a slasher.
George Washington
But
has to flee. What's going to happen?
No, there was like a 1776 is a really bad one. But it's like 1669 or something weird. No one's saving me in the in the chat.
No
one has heard of Fear Street. Anyways, this one's really good.
Question.
Yes.
Fear Street. You mean like old teenager Goosebumps, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But but they were always like a little more violent and a little more edgy than
teenager Goosebumps.
Yeah. So they did movies and they were like really pretty good actually. And I liked that they were made with like, we're going to do Fear Street, but we're going to give it an eye of like diversity and some smart storytelling and some interconnectedness. And I just was like really surprised how good it was. Good horror, Dave. And we're going to get this when I get to TV. I like good horror, but I hate most horror. But good horror is really good.
What constitutes good horror? Because a lot of people like just slasher movies, and I've never found slasher movies to be fun. It's like, oh no, he's gonna get slashed.
Yeah, like that's...
Yeah.
So you have the movie like Final Destination that exists only for cool kills. I don't like those because I don't really relish in the kills. Yeah. But normally if it's a good movie that happens to be a horror movie, I'm on board. I still can enjoy it, even though overall I would say I'm not like a horror fan. Does that make sense?
It does. It just has to be a good story, which seems to be the basis for any movie or game or TV show.
When you break it down, it kind of sounds like reductive and dumb. But like some people, like I hate all horror, and a lot of people like I love all horror, and I'm like, well, like it just has to be a good movie, and then I'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi is my number 2. I promise I'm not going to inundate this list with Marvel movies. I'm
your number 2 or your number 4?
That basic. Number 4. I did not skip all my list. Thank you for pointing that out. It was like Marvel's take. I think I talked about this on the show, so I won't go too much into it. Marvel's take on a martial arts movie. And it's super slick and awesome looking, and I'm so glad that they did it. They did it less in the second half, which was a bummer for me. But the first half is like some of the most fun I've had in a Marvel movie ever, Dave. Ever. Yeah, Michaela's agreeing. Michaela's agreed with me so far. Thank you, Michaela.
Well, I mean, look who's in the chat. Never mind. It's fine.
So my number 3 is maybe a surprise, Dave. I have never seen West Side Story. And now that I did it, WSW is not the proper acronym for West Side Story. Anyways, yeah, I'd never seen it, and it was the first time I saw it was in 2021. I thought it was really good. I'm expecting you guys to have a little more say on West Side Story because,
I mean, I've seen the original, back from the 50s, and the songs are, they still stand up. It was a mind blow to my, 12-year-old self that, oh my God, this is just Romeo and Juliet told in a different story. Oh my God. But the songs are good, and I didn't see this version of it, but I know my parents did, my sister did, and they said they liked it a lot. So, yay.
I was going into this being like, I'm glad I'm seeing it because how nice to see like a culturally relevant movie. I'm sure it'll be fine. And I walked out of the theater just really enjoying it. The cast was really talented, and it was that guy from Baby Driver, Dave. So that's why I thought you might like it.
The main character from Baby Driver?
Yeah.
Baby?
No, Kevin Spacey. He actually makes his return.
Hooray.
To Hollywood.
How good for him. It's nice to see him.
Jamie Foxx, come on. Or John Hamm. Come on, there's a lot of people in that movie.
Yeah, but he has an incredible voice. And I was like, they probably got him for his face because he's very good looking, and his voice is going to be okay. Excellent voice. And he's ugly, so I was wrong. It was backwards. No,
just flipped completely.
He's great.
We kind of talked about this off air. I'm not generally a huge fan of remakes at this point, and that's not exactly a hot take anymore to say that I know. But at the very least, I'll give them credit. This seemed to be well executed, and the fact that the original was 60 years ago means it's a little bit more right for retelling than one that was made like 15 years ago and they just brought back because they don't have any other goddamn ideas.
Yep.
So I have really nothing bad to say about it.
And I don't mind when you pull out old stories, really old stories, like a Shakespearean story. Like, maybe I'm in the minority, or maybe I'm not. I don't even know. That Romeo and Juliet from 1997 that came out, Leonardo DiCaprio in it. I actually loved that movie because it's like, I'm going to take the Shakespeare lines and put it in modern times. I'm like, this is awesome. I loved it.
I was thinking about that movie also when we talked about the Romeo and Juliet parallels a couple minutes ago, and I don't think I would like it again if I watched it. In my head, I have a positive impression of it, and I feel like if I watched it again, I would hate it.
Maybe. I don't know. I just love the fact they kept the Shakespearean lines. That's probably why I loved it so much.
Like, it's almost too on the nose for me, like having the literal names on the guns, and it's
Mercutio written across the gun.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I would watch it again and just find it to be as dumb fun as I did the first time. But my thought is I would not.
Doug said West Side Story is not something he would seek out. He better seek it out because it's really goddamn good.
Because it's coming.
And then Jason said, yes, that's on Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi. Sorry, that's I used to pronounce it. It is Shang-Chi.
It's like your
my
name.
Yeah. Yes, it channeled like a lot of different fight choreography and scenes, kind of like paid homage to martial arts history. And Jackie Chan was one of the ones that was evoked a lot, which is great. Like kind of fighting, but with props and having a little more to it than just like your basic hand-to-hand. And the bus fight. The bus fight.
I mean, when you're fighting in enclosed spaces, that actually does make it so much more exciting.
It does. That's why Marvel has a hallway fight in every TV show they do. So, Dave, did you see No Way Home?
I want to. Believe me, it is like I need to go see it. I just haven't yet. I want to.
You said you were going to go see it, and I was excited to talk about it with you.
Well, I planned on it, and then things happened.
Okay. Well, I was going to spoil the whole thing.
Please don't.
No, I'm not.
He doesn't have a way home.
Oh, all right.
It's excellent. I've thought the Spider-Man movies to this point in Marvel were all good, but none of them like great. They were fine, and I like him interacting with the established universe here, so that's different than the previous Spider-Man movies. This is excellent, and they finally really give him. He has to wrestle with meaningful choices. He doesn't just kind of get to have his cake and eat it too. There's a lot of, I don't know. There's a lot of drama. It's hard to talk about it with saying no spoilers. It's very, very well done. It's a good, captivating movie while also having all the popcorn fun of, you've seen, at least in the trailers, all the villains coming back. So they find a way to weave that in and still make a very emotional story. It's like maybe the most impressed I've ever been by Marvel writers. The ability to juggle those two things.
That's what I've heard consistently out of anything I've heard anybody say. I've not heard a single negative review. My sister called me after leaving the theater saying, go see it. And I'm like, okay, I will. My whole family has COVID at the moment, but I will eventually.
It's so satisfying and fun the whole way through. I was really surprised and impressed. And yet they still managed to, no spoilers, set it up really nicely for the future.
Yep. I imagine. They're that Marvel's always looking to the next step. So no, I'll see it. I'm happy somehow I've avoided all spoilers because apparently that's been a big thing for people on the internet to avoid spoilers. But so far,
and if you've seen the trailer, you already have some idea what we're going into. And if you know anything about Marvel movies, you also know one of the upcoming projects that this is absolutely going to tie into because of both the people and the concept involved. So it's not super surprising, but I'm glad to hear they handled it well because that's going to be the big rock star of this next phase of the MCU. I think that's not to say there won't be others to come, but that's going to be the one that everybody has their eyes on. So it's good to know that that leads into it well. I haven't seen it yet either, and I would even go so far as to say I'm hoping this is going to be the first Spider-Man movie at all that I really liked.
Really?
Yeah, because I wouldn't say I really liked any of the original trilogy or the 2 Andrew Garfield ones. I'm not saying they're bad. I think most of them are good, but none of them have been to the point where I've been like, yeah, I loved that movie.
That's fair.
There's really only one bad one in that mix. The rest of them are all good to really good. So I'm not saying there's a bad pedigree, but there hasn't been one where I've been like, yep, I love that in the way I have 4 or 5 of the MCU so far.
Yeah, that's fair. If you were like, these are all bad, I was going to be like, hold on a minute. I would agree with that. This is really good. When you both see it, maybe we can do a spoilerific review because it's really good. And it deserves, there's some great stuff to talk about there. So anyways, Encanto's my number one. Wait, what?
I was going to comment on Jason here. Mr. Grist. The memes, though, I've not seen a single one.
It's good that you stayed away from them until you watch it.
I'm stunned I haven't seen a meme of it.
Well, he might be talking about memes in the original movies as well, especially the Tobey Maguire ones, of which there are plenty of memes.
There are many of those. And I have to know, Chris, was it number 3 that was the awful one of the original trilogy?
Yes.
I thought it was pretty bad. Yes, thank you. 2 was good. I love 2.
Okay, there's 2 things I want to say. One, I want to say so bad because it's the thing that I took the most away from the movie. I can't talk about it. The other thing was what Jason just mentioned of they get the villains to repeat the lines that were very memeable from their movies, like, I'm something of a scientist myself, and the power of the sun in the palm of my hand. It's great. It's like they know exactly what they're doing, and it's super satisfying. So, anyways.
And they're basically holding it over Sony, like, haha, we own this now, haha.
Yeah, we're doing it right, like you didn't, haha.
Yeah, in a way.
And Sony's like, yeah, well, Spider-Verse. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, that's true, too. Okay, everybody has a point.
Yeah, but
and I guess if you want to include Spider-Verse, that would be a Spider-Man movie that I love. You know, I'm talking real life, but...
Yeah.
But since it's a collaboration, they're making Sony money hand over fist right now, too. So,
true.
They're, you know...
Everyone wins.
So, Encanto's my number 1 movie. Which I'm pretty surprised about, but it was just great and very charming, very, like, emotional, and... I won't get too into it. The thing that I was most impressed by was they did all of that without having like a central villain. And a lot of these Disney movies lately have done it. I can't remember if we talked about it on this show without like a big bad. Like you always used to have that in every Disney movie. You had like the princess and you had the big bad. And now they're doing things where there's conflict that you care about and is meaningful, but they do it without just like some villain. And that's so cool to me. And I'm excited to see more stories like that. That seems to be the direction they're trending in.
I have had so many people tell me how good Encanto is. And it's stunning to me. It's snuck up on me completely. I'm usually good with these. I've heard about them. I know they're coming out. I had no idea it was coming out. And then someone said, hey, you should see Encanto. It's really good. I was like, what do you mean? What's Encanto? And then I see it on Disney Plus if I ever log into it. And so I'll probably be watching that with the kids this weekend.
The first time I heard about Encanto, I thought people were talking about Encino Man.
The old Brendan Fraser movie.
Close.
Got it.
Very thematic.
Just from a title. Because if you don't go to the movies, it turns out you don't see trailers for other movies.
Yeah.
Unless they happen to come across like a Twitter feed. So like I saw the trailer for Spider-Verse 2 because I have other people who share those interests and they shared it and I was like, oh, cool, that came out today. But I had not really heard much about Encanto before it dropped either. Now, again, part of that's a byproduct of not having been to the theaters. But still, I'm glad to see that the pedigree that Disney has been restored because we went through that lull pre-Tangled where it was like, I don't know anymore. Like, Pixar's good, and what's Disney actually doing besides buying Pixar? But we've seen several really good entries. I wasn't quite as over the moon for Coco as some were, but I liked Coco still. Thought it was quite good.
Coco.
Yeah, I think I will too when I finally get a chance to see it. And I think to the big bad point, I mean, I'm glad to see they're not beholden to that formula, and I'm glad to see they can pull it off without them. I do think some of the best Disney characters have been villains, so I hope they don't completely stray in this other direction either. But I'd like them to find a balance between the two, because you definitely don't need one every time. There have been times where it felt like they were shoehorned in, and they weren't very good.
Yeah. And I agree with Jason about, like, Encanto's interesting because, like, without a villain, it's partially why the pacing feels very atypical from what you're used to. And you end up getting characters who are fleshed out like near the end of the movie, who've been in the movie the whole time, and then like the movie ends. So it's very different. I liked it. Because I cared about the characters, so it was okay. But I could see where maybe some people wouldn't like that as much. But I at least have to give them credit for doing something different. It felt like a new approach and not just, the same Disney formula over and over and over again. So I appreciated it for that.
How does that compare to like Soul? As far as Soul, I think was a movie that didn't have a central villain either, really.
Didn't see Soul.
What's that?
I didn't see Soul. I want to. I have a hot take about this that kind of Chris touched on, but I'll save it for a hot take. But I did not see Soul. It's on the list. Okay. I think Luca's on the list, even though I heard this really not that great, but it's okay.
Exactly. That's the same way with me. I've heard meh things about Luca.
Yeah.
Like worth seeing, but by no means a priority.
Exactly. Although I don't like, it's gonna have to be really good to beat Coco, because Coco just hits me right in the feels, man.
See, Encanto was the one that hit me. So watch Encanto and then let me know, like, maybe Coco's like that still hit harder, and I think that'll be interesting to look at.
Yeah, fair.
My top 5 of movies I would have liked to have seen this year but didn't.
There you go.
No Time to Die is on it. Spider-Man No Way Home's on it. Encanto's on it. Shang-Chi is on it. The fifth one I'm surprised by, as I looked over all the lists of the movies that were released this year. This was a fairly recent one, but I do think I'm going to see American Underdog.
Ooh, yeah.
What is
me
that?
Too.
That's basically the Kurt Warner movie.
Oh, yeah.
Zach Levi's in it, which I didn't know until recently, and I was like, okay, I like him, and Anna Paquin's in it, and I'm like, I probably need to watch that, even though it might be saccharine bullshit. I think I need to check it out when I have time. Now, I got to see the other 4 on that list before that, but I think it's one I will eventually get around to.
I might watch that. I was less interested when it doesn't seem like the trailer's going to go into him being on the Cardinals. It seems like it's going to stick to him being on the Rams, which...
I know it at least mentions the 2009 run as well, but it's primarily focused on that part of the story because that's what got him into the league, and that was the whole like, oh, he's a grocery guy. By the time he made it to the Cardinals, he was pretty well established in the league, so it's going to focus on that less.
Yeah, I agree, and I want to see that. Pretty good list overall, Sean. I'm extremely disappointed somehow. How was Space Jam New Legacy not number 1 on your list?
I really struggled. I can only put 5 on the list,
And 2 honorable mentions that you...
Yeah, so it was 8th by proxy, obviously. Yeah, it was definitely 8th. It was not any lower.
Space Jam 2 was one of the movies that I actively, hated.
Yeah.
That I just did not enjoy myself. And that's like, Space Jam. I kid about it. It's not a great film, I know that, but I enjoy watching it so much. That's why I love it. This was like, there was nothing enjoyable about it. It was all just like cheap, and I felt like I was trying to be manipulated, but it wasn't working because I was hating every moment. And maybe my dislike of LeBron that continues to grow, maybe it's too much to overcome. Maybe it was doomed from the beginning, although no one else... I haven't heard one person being like, this movie is really awesome. You should see Space Jam 2. I also watched Power of the Dog with Benedict Cumberbatch. I don't know what. The cinematography is awesome. And the movie's like, okay, this was weird.
You also watched Old.
I did watch Old. I was surprised to see a lot of lists had Old like among the best movies of the year. It was on the list. And I was like, that's interesting. I'm trying to change my frame of mind. Like if the script was a little bit better... Could the performances have been better?
That one actress had been better.
And I was just like, it just wasn't that good. I didn't actively not enjoy it like I did Space Jam 2. It was fine. I had fun with it. But it was like not that good.
As neat of a premise as Old was, it didn't feel like it needed to be an hour and a half plus.
Yeah.
That could have been a short film and been just fine.
Yeah, Doug, I did see Matrix Resurrection. It was fine.
I want to see that as well. That's the 5th one. Chris's 3 on there, he mentioned. And Matrix, like those are the ones I want to see. So
if you like the Matrix, you will probably think this is like, okay, I'm glad I saw that. It does not change my worldview, but it was fine.
That's exactly how I feel. I probably am not going to love this, but I really like the Matrix. I like the world they've built, so I'll dive in.
And I won't see it.
Yeah,
because of the sequels.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
sad.
And I like the sequel, but that's a big dividing point. I think is like if you hated the sequels, you're probably not gonna like this movie.
We're gonna have to have a discussion about that sometime, Sean. Because
we should do another show. We should break it down. All the Matrix movies.
Yep.
I'd love that.
25 years late.
Yeah. Dave, are you next?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Best TV shows. Loki, not on the list.
I know. I put that up there just to make it funny because I know Dave didn't see it.
I got so excited when Dave was like, Loki. I was like, me too, Dave. You piece of shit.
It's just up there. I wanted to scare Sean. So Loki, I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about it, but it's very hard for me to dive into a show based on a cinematic universe in which I've only seen 3 movies of. So there's that. So there's going to be some popular shows on there that I know people like that I don't have on this list, like Yellowstone. Heard it's wonderful. Haven't seen it. Also don't have Paramount Plus, so probably not.
I feel like Yellowstone's awesome if you're 80 years old. I don't know anything about it, but I can't imagine it's like great for me.
That could be the genesis of a later conversation, though, we've basically got to the point of there are so many streaming services, you might as well just pay for cable now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you have a show that's on a system like that you can't watch, what happens then? I've heard good things about Yellowstone. I have no intention whatsoever of getting Paramount Plus, so I guess it's just going to be unknown to me.
We need to have some sort of company that comes in and bundles together all the streaming services so you can pay for it in one package. Maybe they'll call it Cable or something.
Cable.
Like yeah, exactly. Cable. Perfect. So also Succession. Heard it's awesome. Haven't seen it.
I have heard that's like the best show ever made.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people have said very good things about Succession. Want to watch it. Haven't yet. Really only started hearing about it in the last month of the year. So between holiday season, really not much time for TV shows. But anyway, I'm going to go 5-1 as usual. I'm going off the grid for number 5 and picking a YouTube show, actually, that I absolutely love. There's a YouTube channel called Screen Rant. 90% of what Screen Rant puts out is hot garbage. Terrible. Top 10 things you didn't notice about the Harry Potter movies. Absolute garbage. However, there is one contributor on there. His name's Ryan George. Puts out this series of YouTube videos called Pitch Meetings. Pitch Meetings are him talking to himself as though one is a writer and one is a movie producer and talking about different movies and describing what happens in the movie in a comical way. It is some of the funniest thing I've seen ever. I laugh so hard that I have to pause the video sometimes. And there's recurring jokes in this thing. If you've seen them before, me saying super easy, barely an inconvenience is the one that happens every time. It is so funny. Thank you, Doug, for calling me out, saying how hilarious that is.
What's really sad about this is Gary, friend of the show, Gary, many people listening know Gary, used to do this as like part of his movie reviews. He was on top of this. He was this before it happened, but if you sleep on it, someone's going to take your idea. That's what the internet is.
I mean, and part of the thing that just endears me to this so much is the guy is absolutely, you can tell, he doesn't even try to fake that it's the same person, but he talks to himself and edits it so cleanly that it is just perfect how quickly he talks. It's fast paced. Jokes are flying. They make fun of the movie while also respecting it in a way. I think they just do a fantastic job.
Cool.
So, yep. So that's number 5. Number 4, probably one that everyone is super familiar with. It's a kid's show called Bluey. It is a Australian show that's on Disney Plus, and they had their second season come out here in 2021. And my God, if there's ever been a kid's show that you can actually sit down and watch as an adult and get just as much enjoyment from it as the kids do, it's this show. They somehow speak to kids and parents with the same content in 2 completely different ways, and it hits kids and adults in very different ways. It's amazing how well they do it. So,
like, my go-to is like, that's such a dad show, and then I'm like, that joke sucks because that's exactly what it is. It's for dads and moms and kids.
It's not, though. The thing is, like, it's about a family, and yes, it's a family. Like, it's a dogs. They're Australian, very Australian accents. However, the subjects are family driven, but they're absolutely relatable for everyone. I don't know how. I mean, I guess I don't know how well it would hit for people who are not parents, but there are just so many relatable experiences. Of there's an episode where the dad's trying to make a cake for his daughter's birthday and messes it up and just has this moment of just like sulking down behind the counter of like, oh, I am a failure. It doesn't have to be about parents, but everyone's kind of had that feeling of like, oh my God, this is so difficult. I can't right now. And somehow they encapsulate that in a kid's show and make it heartwarming at the same time.
But they're dogs?
They're dogs.
Why is a dog? Okay. All right. Okay. Interesting.
It's like Paw Patrol.
No, not
dogs doing
Paw
jobs.
Paw Patrol is god awful.
Oh, it's like Blue's Clues.
Yes, dogs doing jobs. It's like Clifford the Big Red Dog.
I remember, but Blue's Clues, the dog never baked a cake.
And the dog sucked. I mean, the damn clue was right in front of his eyes, and all the kids were like, "It's right there."
That's true. Okay, so this isn't like that.
No. Like I said, it speaks to parents and kids, adults and kids in the same way. And they're 7-minute long episodes. They usually, like, if it were on a TV network, I usually watch on Disney Plus. You can pick one. But if it was on a TV show, they'd play 3 different 7-minute episodes. I highly recommend actually trying to watch it because even though it is for kids and it's kid-ish content, it's still really funny and really good.
I thought you were gonna say the dad was sulking and like the kid walked in and the dad like threw like a noose he was tying like under the cabinet, and I was like, "Dang, Dave, that is pretty dark."
That's for adults and for kids.
That's for both because the kids are like, "Daddy, what is the noose there?"
He's tying a rope. I like playing tug of war.
But the parents.
Thank you, Doug. His buddy Mitch loves Bluey. Other parents I've talked to absolutely love this show, and when they see their kids watch it and they're like, "Oh wait, this is actually really good." So. It's 7 minutes long. Give a few episodes a chance. That's all I ask.
I'm noticing a trend with your best show so far, though. So this is 7 minutes. I can't imagine the first thing you said is much more than like, 5 minutes at most?
30 seconds. Yeah, they're short.
Yeah, that's more what I would have guessed. So, okay.
All right, now I'm going to go in a completely different direction with number 3, and that's Squid Game.
You watch Squid Game?
Yes, I watched
Dave,
Squid Game.
I've never been more attracted to you than I am at this moment.
Wonderful. I am so glad that the fact I can switch between a child animated TV show about dogs and then switch to a TV show about murdering people.
Wait, okay. I have a really important question, though. I might have to retract everything. What did you watch it in? Yeah, sorry, English or Korean?
So I didn't realize until later that I could watch it in Korean. Otherwise, I would have, but it was in English because it was so distracting how bad the dub was.
That's fair. That if it's ignorance and it was not your choice, that's fine.
I kind of got sucked into this because Courtney started watching it, and literally what happened on the first episode, we had to go back to do it, was we had it on, it was late at night, and we fell asleep, and then she woke up with a pile of dead bodies on the ground in that show, and she's like, Dave, what happened? I'm like, what? I don't know, I fell asleep. And then we went back and watched the first episode again. So,
yeah, because there's not a lot of Squid Gaming in the first episode.
No.
So I can understand being confused about getting to the end of that and then finding out where it heads to very quickly, and you go, wait a minute. What?
Yeah, it would, but really, I mean, we talked about slasher shows earlier. It's a slasher movie, kind of. It is blood, guts, gore. But what is intriguing about it is the question of, I've always kind of thought everyone has their price for something, right? Like everyone has kind of like, what would they do in extreme situations? And these are all these people that are down on their luck, obviously, and have a lower price to do these types of things than maybe someone who's not down their luck would do. But you see raw humanity come out in situations like this, and I'm blanking on, it's not Gi-hun who's the main character, it's his best friend from childhood, and I can't remember his name, and I feel awful not remembering his name, but it's basically the guy he was down at the end with, and him like showing his dark side when he's this composed guy in the beginning is just so amazing to me, and just the growth of the characters, the fact of how each of them interact with each other, interact with this awful situation they've been put in, how they treat each other horribly because they're all competitors. And then towards the end, they start like, oh, maybe we can work together. Like the guy who can see the glass, whether it's tempered or not. The change in growth of humanity and how humanity acts when pushed to the extreme is compelling, even if I was not a fan of the violence.
Yeah, well, you know what though, the violence maybe at times was over and violence doesn't bother me, and it didn't bother me in this show. But I can, like, there were times where it was more than it needed to be, but it needed to be a little bit because that's how it punctuates things, you know? Like the violence was making a point at least, so I could appreciate it for that. There's so much smart stuff that they do where you get a little bit, obviously there's the classism stuff going on that's there present throughout. You get a little bit of themes exploring, like you could argue the person that kept their humanity is the one who prevailed. And that, like, I thought was a pretty cool message throughout. Like the main character should not have won, except that because he was empathetic and because he forged those relationships, that's what helped him. I mean, he should have died like 4 or 5 at a minimum.
Well, he would have been dead in the glass jumping part.
Yeah, she's like, get your shit together, man. It's like the first step. So that was great. But I think for me, the smartest thing that they did out of the whole show was they had the mechanism in there that allowed them to go home, because the creators of the show did everything they could to address the suspension of disbelief of like, how would somebody actually choose to do this? It's like, well, they let him go home. They gave him the free choice, and these people's lives are so bad that they're like, you know what? I'm actually going to elect to go back in there. I know what I'm sacrificing. I know what's on the line, but it's like, I'm going to die out there. I'm going to die in here. At least here I have a chance. And I thought that was super clever.
You did have to suspend disbelief, because I feel like a couple of the people that didn't go back would be like, hey, police, I've got a thing I want to show you. And I know they covered their tracks and stuff like that, but I mean, you have to suspend your disbelief.
Jason said there are some schools that have banned playing red light, green light now because of Squid Game. And I'm afraid they're missing the point.
They don't have a giant creepy doll, so I don't understand why
it's banned. A bit backwards. It's like the game is not the... Anyways, that's fine.
You can make anything into a mechanism for a death game if you try hard enough.
Exactly.
They proved that.
You know, I kind of wonder now... I've heard nothing but terrible things about the dub, and we all know the trials and tribulations the creator of Squid Game went through just to get this project live. I'm sure this type of success was beyond his wildest dreams, especially in those lows. Is it just a sunk cost at this point, or is that something that because the show is so popular, they should try and fix at some point? Can you even go back on that and like redub it just to try and correct that, or you just tell people, watch it in Korean and the hell with that part of it?
Well, they should definitely watch it in Korean, no matter what, even if the English dub was excellent. I feel really strongly watching in the native language. Always, no matter what you're watching. But yeah, I think at the very least, if you have someone who's an idiot and they refuse to watch it in Korean, they refuse, Dave, so I'm not saying you're an idiot. A better English dub at least would help. Yeah. I mean, there are some dubs that are so bad it actually changes the meaning of what happened. Dub and if you get the wrong subtitles too. So yeah, that whole part was rushed, and I think they should go back and do that. It's big enough for sure.
What was interesting about that was I actually watched it. I had the English dub, but also I had subtitles on. So I was reading the subtitles and marveling at how different the subtitles were at times.
That's always bad.
Yep, that's terrible.
Happens in anime sometimes, and you're like, boy. And there are even times in anime where both of them are terrible, where the dub sucks and the translation of it sucks. And you're like, what happened here?
Yeah. I just have to say, what bullshit. That glass step game is, I would be so pissed if I was on that show. And I'm like, so I went first. So I'm just dead.
Yeah,
so I have no chance at all of doing this. That's great.
What was it? 16. It was 16 panels. So 50-50 shot on each one. So 50, 25, 12 and a half.
Well, they had the guy actually do the math there. And he was like, so here's my odds. And then I think he made one. And then the very next one, like wasn't even close.
Yep. I mean, hopefully it's over quickly, because I only imagine like you fall down that it didn't look like that far of a fall. So I can only imagine you land on the ground and you're like Will Ferrell's character in Austin Powers. I'm not dead yet.
Yeah.
Just very badly burned.
My legs are broken. It hurts very bad.
And they shoot him and they go, you shot me. You shot me in the arm.
To be fair, I would not have gone. If I was the first one there, I'd be like, you guys are going to have to figure it out. I'm not taking one goddamn step on this thing. Sorry. Well, and if we all die, that's fine. Because the alternative is I'm guaranteed dead anyway.
You selfish bastard.
Sorry. Yeah. I mean,
welcome to Squid Game.
Yeah. Hello. So it's a good thing I wasn't on Squid Game.
Well, and also not to mention that, as did happen, they'll just shove you. And, oh, hey, wow, you landed on the tempered one. Try again, bitch.
And then everybody gets into, like, King of the Hill. Yeah. And then everybody dies because you wasted all your bodies. Pretty much. There's no one left to go. Yeah, that one I didn't like. But, man, what a good show. Holy shit.
Yep. number 2 and number 1 were actually very difficult for me to decide on. And I am going to go number 2 for me is Ted Lasso season 2. We've talked about it.
I'm so sorry, really quick. Jason's like, yeah, if you go first, you just fight the other contestants and hope for the best. Exactly. That, at least I have a chance. Ted Lasso season 2. Interesting choice because it's not season 1. And it kind of was only okay.
Well, and it was still very good. I enjoy the characters. I couldn't pick season 1. That was in 2020, not 2021. But it was still very good. I actually went back and watched the Christmas episode on Christmas Eve, and it hit way better than it did in the middle of August for some unknown reason. Can't figure out why. But overall, I mean, we've talked about this show already on here. The decline of Nate was intriguing to see, especially because it's not something that I expected to happen as you go throughout the season. I think it was deep in a way that like you initially don't understand his reasoning and then do kind of understand his reasoning after you think about it a little bit longer of why he got so upset with Ted. And a show hasn't really portrayed mental health in this type of way that they did. And still it was entertaining, even though it wasn't the same happy feeling that I had in season 1. So I'm excited to see what happens in season 3 because it was very much number 1. Season 1 was just this beacon of happiness. Season 2 was much lower. So I wonder what they're going to do with 3.
Yeah, I have some beef with this one. I think this one let you down, as Paul Hollywood likes to say. Because the first one, it's like, I applaud you for doing a weird YouTube bit for a show. But then you put this, which was really like a good ending does not a great show make, and I thought this had a really solid ending, but the season before that really let it down. And, I know you probably only saw close to 5 shows. I don't even mean that as an insult. So like at some point you're just going to rank them as they are, but this is above Squid Game. So what's going on, Dave?
I appreciated Squid Game for what it was, but I think I just like the characters more in this one. I'm committed to it. I like how they can take a character like Jamie, who you pretty much hated, and still turn him into a sympathetic figure where you're basically crying when Roy hugs him in the middle of the season. Like, they do such a good job of character development that I can't overlook that.
All right. I mean, but you also watched the dub. Maybe when you go back and watch it in
I read
native
the
language,
subtitles.
it'll be better.
Yeah, if you watch Ted Lasso in its original language, it might change your opinion too.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I kind of needed subtitles for Ted Lasso too because I'm not very good with understanding
I need
accents.
subtitles for English shows.
Yeah,
so
whatever.
There's no shame in that.
The English is just the accent's beyond us. We can't help that at this point.
Yep.
All right.
Even Ted sometimes he's a a whirlwind of words sometimes, and I'm like, you got a southern twang, and I need it for you too.
Yep.
I had to rewind, especially when he had some quick Tedisms, or I just had to go back and be like, what the hell did he actually say? So.
All right. What's your number 1?
Yep. Invincible is my number 1, which.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't know you watched that.
I did. I loved it. I absolutely loved the take on the superhero genre, the darkness of it, the kind of the origin story mixed in with the fact that there's already an established hero, villain. So I don't know. Sean, have you watched this?
I watched the first 4 episodes. I will finish it. It didn't grab me. I think it's good. I don't love it. There's something tonally weird that I can't reconcile and I can't even articulate. And it's like in some ways they handle like the violence and what being here would actually be and the darkness. And then I feel like in other ways they don't. And it like tonally it's jarring for me there. Let me watch it all and I'll see if I can come back with something more intelligent to say about it. But it just did not grab me all the way.
Chris, have you seen it?
Episode 1.
Okay. So I almost didn't watch this because the way episode 1 is structured is they have the episode, like 40 minutes of the episode, and then it goes to like the title card. And I'm like, oh, I guess it must just be done. And then the big reveal happens. And I'm like, I'm really glad I didn't turn this off because, you don't have the structured half-hour TV shows on a network like you used to. So I kind of thought it was over and was ready to go to episode 2. And I'm like, hold on, there's more. And it was a big obviously a big deal.
Yeah.
But overall, Sean, you're right. It is a little jarring, but that's something I kind of appreciated in this world that they've crafted. The things I like so much is, one, aliens, superheroes, dimensional beings, all of this is just basically commonplace. Superheroes are just commonplace in this world. But the global defense agency, or whatever it was called, the agency that was run by the humans, the technology that they had to combat that was the key factor in what made me love this show so much. It was, look, we have this unstoppable force in Omni-Man. You just can't do anything about him. But we have some technology to at least quell it or work with it or have something that we can manage this. If this guy wants to kill us all, he'll probably do it. It led to some good conflicts. It led to some good just action sequences. It led to all the other superheroes in this world having to deal with their desires and what they would do with their powers to get it, like the robot character working with the bad guys to get his human body that he wants because his original human body was so messed up. So many factors went into the show that made it intriguing, compelling to me. And I don't know, something stupid that I liked about it is definitely not the main reason I liked it, but the fact that the title card kept getting bloodier and bloodier throughout the season just got me.
That's a nice touch, yeah.
Number one.
I think, like the twist is great. I love, this is what I mean. In some, like the violence doesn't bother me. And I like it when they are bold to do stuff like that. Him trying to save like the old woman and like almost killing her himself early on. Great. I love that. Mm-hmm. But then you get like, I don't know. There's just something about Persona 5 I love because I can totally buy all the reactions from these characters as they're like learning how to do this thing and you see their growth. And like there's something, maybe it's rushed. Maybe there's some element that I'm not seeing of like, I don't know. I don't get that same immersion from him becoming the hero like with his dad and how it's treated. And there's like, yeah, you're just going to go join a team and they're going to make wisecracks even though like, thousands of people are dying on the daily here. Like, who would live in this city anymore? Or other thoughts that I have. But I have that about the MCU now too, so I can't hold that just against Invincible. I need to finish it, and then we'll talk about it.
The ending episode was very powerful to me, so it did make a difference to me. So,
stellar voice cast.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, anything with J.K. Simmons in it is already good. But I mean, Stephen Wan is in it. Stephen Wan, I'm sorry I pronounced that wrong. Jason Muzank, I can't pronounce his name properly.
Yeah, him.
I mean, there's a lot of very, very good voice cast members in that too. So
I don't know, Michaela. The MCU is pretty terrible. You should watch Invincible and then get back to me on.
Yeah, it's worse. I'll go ahead and spoil that for you in advance.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, think. Good memes, especially that one. But There's a few others that have been pretty popular from the show, and I intend to watch it at some point, like all the way through. I watched the first just to kind of see what it was about, because I'd seen a lot of hubbub on social media leading up to its release, and was kind of intrigued. And I intend to watch more. I wasn't like over the moon about it in episode 1, but it's so early, it's hard to really say much about it then.
I gotta say, I was surprised at how quickly it did grab me, because I watched episode 1, I was like, we'll see. Watched episode 2, and then I wanted to keep going. And I mean, there's only 8 episodes, they're each an hour long, so it is a bit of a time commitment, because 8 hours, but I finished in like 2 weeks. I just kind of watched one episode a night.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, there's something to be said for that. Okay, Dave, I'm going to give you my list really quick. I'm not going to go as long, but because it's only 3 shows long. Loki was really good. It was the best of the Marvel TV shows. It felt like less beholden in some ways to like being in the MCU, I thought. So which means it might be worth you checking out, Dave, because like you don't have all the history, but it's just like a fun adventure where like every episode ended and I was really excited to see what happened next. And that's the only show so far from that 4 that they've done that I felt that way.
If we're trying to get Dave into the MCU, I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the right TV show choice.
I don't know. Because I like how it's mindful of the impact of the snap. It's just the execution is only so-so, I think.
Yeah, but again, you're thinking about this from Dave's perspective, not yours.
No. But Dave likes good TV. I'm trying to give you credit, Dave.
I know, but which of those 3 stories is going to resonate with him the most as a way to get in the door? I think he should end up on Loki because I think he would actually like it more than Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But if you're trying to get him on one to start, That's the
Dave.
most accessible.
We'll talk.
I do love being
This one's
talked about in third
exciting.
person.
I'm gonna make a note on it.
Because Loki, while it's not beholden to the MCU, is full of little nods to things from other movies throughout that are Easter eggs. So you don't necessarily need them, but you're not going to get most of those references.
Luckily, though, you won't be able to discern the MCU references and the like deep cut comic book references.
Yep.
They'll just all bleed together. And
Yeah, it'll just be an alligator. You'll be like, ha, it's an alligator. You don't need to know the history of the alligator.
Yeah, you'll be like, what movie was he in? It's like, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. He's an alligator.
The second show, and this is hard because either of these could have been the best show, honestly. But I'm gonna go with number 2, Arcane. I would probably also recommend this one to you, Dave, because you tend to like good animated stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's actually good animated, you tend to like it. And this is really good. I would say the first 2 episodes are a little slow, good world building, but a little slow. Episode 3 starts getting like, holy shit. A thing happened, Dave, and I was like, what did that do that? And then another thing happened, and my jaw was just like, open. I just sat there, jaw open. I couldn't believe that they did what I could. I was like, please don't let them do this. But I'm so glad they did, actually. They were not afraid to go a direction that I was not expecting. And then episode 4 starts, and you're like, okay, I love everything about this now. This is really, really good. And then you appreciate the time it took to get to that spot. And it's complex, and there's politics and dynamics going on, and you care about all the... It's phenomenal. It's really great. And so when people are like, Arcane might be the best animated show ever made, I disagree, but I can see where they're coming from, and that's enough for me. It's awesome.
I intend to watch it. Haven't seen it yet.
It's great.
Same
It's
me.
great. It's great.
It's on my list.
And then Squid Game. I mean, it's great. Everybody like in the world is like, Squid Game is the number 1 show, and it's because it is. It's excellent. It's just really good. We've already talked about it, so I don't need to go into detail. But yeah, that's my list. Arcane. Jason likes Arcane. Number 1. We're gonna watch it when he comes. And then we might do like a review on it or something. It'll be great.
What network is that on, or what streaming is that on?
Netflix. So you
Okay.
likely have it.
I do.
And it's cool because it's split into like cores, like little 3 episodes at a time, kind of like mini movies in a way. But just like, it's a better way to think about it is just like the way to digest the story in segments, and that really works too. So yeah, definitely check it out.
We've touched on most of the things that would have been on my TV list. The only one that wasn't mentioned was Cobra Kai. Awkward spot because I'm going to put Cobra Kai Season 4 in next year's list, almost certainly, as long as I like it. It was technically released in 2021 because it came out New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
But it makes it really difficult to consider as a best of 2021 when it comes out on the last day. And we haven't watched it yet. We will. We really like Cobra Kai, but who knows where that's going to end
Might
up.
be able to
That's a
get some
2022
Haikyuu next
show,
year too.
Yeah, I mean,
That'll be nice.
that will be an American release, so I think that counts, even though it came out in Japan this year,
I think
well,
so.
2021. I have no problems with including it because I think we did that for one of the seasons a couple years ago. I don't remember. It wouldn't have been 2 years ago because that was pre-pandemic. I don't know. All the years blend together. One of the things that was remarkable to me was looking back on a few things that were earlier in the year and being like, that was this year? Because it felt like it was much longer of a year than that.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember what it was, but something came out in like March or April, and I was like, that wasn't the year before? Oh, God. All right, I have 2.5 minutes to go over my list of the best games of 2021. We're going to be doing
a lot more.
we're going to be going in word salad mode, so that when Cody arrives and the dogs start barking, there is not going to be time for us to all have a miserable death.
Screw them. I want to go on my games list too. So let's go.
You've
Chris.
never heard me talk lawyer speak, but I'm going to have to do it to get this in 2.5 minutes. Let me tell you, I'm already speaking faster in anticipation.
All right.
Things I appreciated from this year. I liked that they re-released the Scott Pilgrim game because for about 6 years that was just unavailable. If you didn't already have a copy of it, it was non-existent to you, and they put it on the Switch, so that's a nice way to make that accessible. It's been 12 years since the movie came out, so I don't know who cared anymore, but I was glad to see it come back. And Hades came out on the PS5 this year, so I could have put it in my top 5 because I finally got to play it and I liked it quite a bit.
I had a couple of those.
Retroactively, I would like to maybe put it in that year's list, and I think I mentioned that at the time that I thought it was going to be a good fit, but doesn't work that way. I didn't get to it. There's going to be 2 games on this list that Sean are going to have on his that I won't, that maybe I would have, but I didn't have time to play. And Back 4 Blood's a weird one to me because I loved Left 4 Dead, and I liked Left 4 Dead 2. I really wanted to get around to playing Back 4 Blood. We talked about playing Back 4 Blood at a couple different points, and it didn't happen whatsoever.
It just never happened at all. This
So,
never got off the ground.
Yeah, so I imagine that's still going to be the case. I know they've ironed out some of the kinks because in something that sounded eerily reminiscent of Left 4 Dead 2, there was a huge problem with way too many specials spawning at points, and the second difficulty was hell, let alone the third one beyond that I think 3 or 4 weeks after release, not a single player had beaten the game on the highest difficulty mode. So, like, it's
That's
fucking difficult. I don't know how that's gone since then. I haven't really followed the game the last month or so, but still want to give that a shot at some point. Honorable mention, I put it up there just because I know it's a game all three of us did play. Persona 5 Strikers did not make the list. Not my style of gameplay. Love Persona 5's universe.
Like the story, didn't like the gameplay. It was fine.
Exactly.
Yep.
Same boat.
Deathloop and Returnal are going to be on Sean's list. Didn't get to them. I think Returnal is going to be the game I play next, now that I just finished Slay the Spire. But the episode's right now. I haven't played it, so I can't put it on the list.
I want to play Deathloop. That's the one I want to play more. So
There you go,
Well, there
Dave.
you go.
I have all these recommendations.
When you come up here in a couple weeks, which we need to talk about tonight after the show, we'll see if we can get that hooked up. Rogue Heroes Ruins of Tassos, a Switch game, kind of an indie game. I think it's also on PC. 4-player Link to the Past vibes. Enjoyed it quite a bit. It's still kind of working its way through a similar process I think Slay the Spire did, where it's kind of undergoing changes and patches as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
So the result now is better than it was then, and I think it's going to get to an even better place. But what I've played so far, which is a complete game that's missing some pieces along the way, I've enjoyed quite a bit. And I think it's just because I didn't play the last couple, but Mario Golf Super Rush, I had fun with.
I liked it.
It's not a top 5 game. I don't think it has the depth for that. They put out some free content pretty shortly after the game's release that I think helped a bit. A couple of new courses, some more characters. I just had fun with it. And you know what? Having fun is kind of important these days.
Yeah.
Dishonorable mention.
Oh,
Cyberpunk 2077 is going on my dishonorable mention because they didn't do jack shit this year, and they've had now 16 months since release, and there's still no next-gen release.
how?
And the timetable for that game right now is currently 2022. We are in 2022, so if the release window is not any tighter than 2022, guess what, Cyberpunk fans? You're still going to get fucked over the ass for the remainder of this calendar year.
It was a little more than jack shit, but not a lot more than jack. Like it's
I know they've made
basically
some improvements.
baseline playable though. So
Yeah, like getting
depending
rid
if
of
you
game-breaking bugs.
If
Yeah.
you consider that an improvement or not, yeah.
And I don't want to keep shitting on it. I actually still want to play the game. I think it's going to be enjoyable to some extent. I'm just more shocked by the fact that a studio as good as CD Projekt Red could bungle something so badly.
I want to play this game. Like I've heard so many good things. I've wanted to play it, and I'm like, this sounds awesome. And nope. I'm not. I don't have it on next gen. I don't want to play on the old gen. And nope.
This is the lesson of crunch though. Like
Yeah.
someone of CD Projekt Red's pedigree, and crunch killed this game.
And no one's immune to it.
Yep.
Nobody. And that sucks. And again, it's a shame because like people expected such huge things from this, maybe too much that could never be delivered on. And after the delays, I think they got backed into a corner because they're like, well, we've already delayed it this many times. We can't push it back again. They should have pushed it back again.
Yep.
Have some spine. Do the Miyamoto and delay it until you're goddamn ready to release
Still
it.
right.
Yeah.
People wait. Damn it.
Fuck your shareholders.
Also, a soft dishonorable mention goes to Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which sounds strange, but it's really because it made no impact whatsoever when it was released, and I was almost surprised by that.
Mhm.
Like, it came out, a few people who hadn't had a chance to play it before got to, and nobody else really talked about it. I'm not sure if that's like just lingering stank from another game that we won't mention. I don't know. Did it push away too many Mass Effect fans that were like Andromeda was trash, and now I don't really want to go back and play the originals, or are they just content with their previous playthroughs and that's what's in their heart? I'm not sure. Mine's in the shrink wrap. I bought it and I haven't opened it.
I want to look at the sales. I want to see, like, did it do good or
Yeah,
was
I'm
it forgotten?
Yeah, I'm curious about that myself, and I'm not really sure. So I'd be interested what you find out. And my
Yeah.
final dishonorable mention goes to Skyrim Anniversary Edition, which, for the love of God, I love Skyrim. It's probably going to be higher on my best games ever list than the first time we did that whenever we get around to doing the new one. But just, we don't need a new version of it every single year. Just stop. Please stop. Just stop. Like, somebody needs to give them the Michael Jordan meme where it's like, stop. Get some help. Because it's just too many versions. But that was fine. It's just a new version of a thing that's been run into the ground. The actual dishonorable mention goes to the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy Definitive Edition.
That's the one, yeah.
Which, boy, you think like Cyberpunk's things were bad. Boy, talk about fucking GTA and its litany of game-breaking bugs. Its awful, horrendous issues with graphics fidelity across its 11 different versions, which I can't imagine how that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
What a joke. And a year when people really just want to know more about Grand Theft Auto 6. To put that out on the same day as Skyrim Anniversary, when people really just want to know more about Elder Scrolls 6, is not lost on me. And I think at this point, everybody's kind of like, all right, enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's sad. It's sad when a old game, they're like, we're going to put it on a new system, so a whole new generation of people can play it, and then it's a buggy mess. Like, how does that happen? How? Like, you can't. That's the one thing you can't do. You already have the source material.
Like, it's bad enough that there's. I can't decide which is worse. The game breaking bugs probably are, because they just prevented people from playing the game properly. But what they did to some of the character models, when in the attempt to upscale them, and now they look like grotesque subhuman trash. I'm just like, who greenlit this?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, it was probably just rushed out for some imaginary sales target that they had for Q4. But to me, it's like if you've spent 10 minutes in this game, you realize there were huge fundamental problems with it. So how did this make it to gold?
It's sad too, because I would have actually really liked playing if they would have upped like Grand Theft Auto 3 and put it with a little bit more modern, the driving ability, having the GPS available like they did in Grand Theft Auto 5. Like having a little bit easier gameplay in Grand Theft Auto 3, I would have actually really liked buying this trilogy, because I've only beaten San Andreas, have not beaten Vice City, and 3 I barely played. So it would be nice to go back and play a couple games that I haven't played with some more updated things.
You're not going to do it here.
Nope.
Yeah,
maybe next year.
I did see it did do well on Steam, and it did surpass their sales expectations. So that's Mass
good.
Effect. That's good. I haven't played it yet either, though. So I'm going to.
I will too. I didn't buy it for no reason, but with everything else that was going on, it was like, well, that's not a priority. Like, I like those games, but there's other things I need to play, and it's not those again.
And I can say I can agree with Doug. I hate that GTA Online exists, because that means no Grand Theft Auto 6 ever, and I hate it. Hate everything about it.
Yeah, active live service.
Yeah.
That's and look. So Halo Infinite they might do a similar thing where they release like campaigns over time, and like something like that I could be down with. But like this GTA Online isn't like GTA. It's GTA Online. It's a separate thing, and so that kind of bums me out.
Yep. I want a story. I want a whole game like they have before. I would love that. I love the story. I love the growth, the care. I love all of that stuff. I just want the game.
Yep. Chris, you did not mention Metroid Dread.
I did not. So it must be in the top 5 somewhere. Number 5.
Oh, you're still going? Okay, sorry. You are slowing down.
You told me to go, so I'm doing the whole bit.
I want you to take... if we go till 9, man, and it's just the 3 of us left, that's fine with me.
just boot the audience over time.
Exactly.
Dog shriek in the background. Everything explodes. Number 5 is Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl.
Oh, okay.
If it wasn't so goddamn easy, this would be higher on my list. It is a shame that they have broken the balance into the point where even baby children can excel at this game, because it hits a lot of other notes well. I actually really like the little cutesy art style that people hated in the beginning. I think it's a good fit for the remake, especially because it still keeps you in that kind of over-the-shoulder, top-down perspective. It's one of my favorite games to begin with, so getting to see it realized in a remake form is really nice. Soundtrack's really good. I kind of like Team Galactic more than I should. They're a bunch of idiots, but Cyrus is pretty cool. He's a tryhard, though. So just getting a chance to revisit this world, I was happy to see it. I'm relatively content with it, and other than the fact that I had to make my own difficulty scaling by like not using certain Pokemon and keeping my team short-handed sometimes, because like you can have the EXP share be on mandatorily and then tweak everything to be harder, or you can make it so I can turn it off and then keep the scale the same way it was, which is what I think not Sword Shield, but Sun Moon did that, where it was like, here's the experience share, and I immediately went in the menu and I was like, off.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Either one of those things. You can't do both. You can't make the experience share mandatory and give experience for catching Pokemon like the last 2 gens have done, and then leave your final bosses in the low 50s. Can't do it.
I'm playing that Uranium Pokemon game, and I'm loving it because it is so hard, and there is no experience share. So you got to do it the old-fashioned way, and it's like, oh, I miss this. So yeah, I'm going to have to do my own difficulty scaling for this game.
So, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, so easy a 5-year-old could do it. Like, should I purchase this for my 5-year-old?
Possibly.
All
Yeah.
right. Because
'Cause,
he's
I mean,
obsessed with Pokemon lately.
As long as they can grasp the basic concepts, they can stumble their way around into fights enough to get enough experience. And there's almost no bad Pokemon in that game, so they can build a solid team. In fact, I was looking through that because Sean was like, what's the worst team I can build? And I'm looking through the list of the Pokedex for that gen, and I'm like, there's not a lot of filler in this. It's probably the tightest gen top to bottom. Because every other gym has nonsense Pokemon that would never actually be used. And this game's pretty light on them.
If you hear your 5-year-old talking about kicking the shit out of a Pokemon for letting him down, though, or like locking it in the basement, maybe draw the line there.
Got it. I hope that doesn't happen.
It will, though. It's inevitable.
Got it, of course.
Number 4 is Tales of Arise, a game I talked about the first 10 hours of in an episode probably a couple months ago. It's an interesting game that's flawed. It kind of reminds me of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, actually, in the sense that Tales of Arise has a lot of good things going for it. We already talked in the first part of this about how the DLC was a nightmare. They actually patched it out a couple weeks ago. So it's no longer going to pop up on you every time you do a campfire with your friends. Now they took that out, so it's not scrolling across the screen, breaking your immersion and reminding you to purchase things for the greater good.
God.
So that's at least one plus if you're going to go play that now, is that no longer exists. It's a really interesting battle system that absolutely could still have been multiplayer, so fuck that.
Mm-hmm.
That's disappointing, and you've seen that already be patched in the PC version of the game because people are like, hey, if you just do this, it works. So, not a terrific look for Namco Bandai there. However, looks great, especially by Tales game standards, because the standard's pretty low for those, especially since there had been quite a few years since Berseria came out. Characters are super interesting. Voice acting's pretty good except for one character. Story's pretty interesting overall. I don't know that it succeeds in its attempts to make racial conflict interesting in a way that's not insensitive to people who have actually undergone racial conflict. But it's also never like pandering or dishonest about that. The world they've set up, the racial conflict makes sense within it. Epilogue's a little weird. Goes on a little too long. But for what it was, really enjoyed combat, which is why I play Tales games in the first place. So if I enjoy that, that's 90% of the battle right there. No pun intended. And the story was solid for what it was, so it gets the 4th spot. I was pleasantly surprised. Berseria I liked the story of, but didn't like the combat. Zestiria I didn't like the story or the combat. So this is at least a step in the right direction, even though it didn't have multiplayer.
Would I like it?
You would like the fighting.
Okay.
Probably quite a bit, because it's a blend of some Tales stuff and some dodging / maneuvering that's going to remind you of something like a Neo, or I mean not quite along those lines, but similar, I think.
Okay.
So I think you would enjoy the game. I wouldn't recommend it as something you dive into immediately, but if you find yourself with nothing else, I do think it's one you would like.
Okay, it's on my list. Berseria didn't grab me, so I'm on the fence, but
Berseria is tough. Really like the world they constructed there and the characters in it, but I didn't love that fighting system at all.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Metroid Dread is my number 3. It's not my game of the year. I was surprised to see it get as many Game of the Year accolades as it did, because there is a core contingent of some people who really do not like this game at all, who feel like it's just basically a fancy version of something like a Pokemon Uranium, where it's like a fan-made game to an extent. I think the world is much too big and polished for that to be the case, but we talked about it for an entire episode on one that Dave wasn't around for. I don't think I need to talk about it a lot, but really nice to see 2D Metroid back, especially when it was so well executed, and the fact that it sold so tremendously means that we should be seeing more of it in the future.
Yay.
Thank God, because it doesn't look like Metroid Prime 4 is coming anytime soon, so maybe we'll get another 2D Metroid in like 2025. Who knows?
Yeah, I won't go on too much. We did a whole episode. It was also not my game of the year, but it's good and solid. I'm so glad it sold well, and that's awesome.
Number 2 is The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Yes, it's above Metroid Dread. Yes, it is the best game in the Ace Attorney series.
Wow,
Yep, there's the hot take of this episode. It's coming at you right now.
Very
I
hot.
can watch the whole thing on our YouTube channel, so go do that.
That's right. Although the playthrough is kind of stalled because Michaela spent a month and a half in Disneyland, but we will be getting back to it shortly. That's not entirely true, but it's not entirely untrue.
She actually
Why
got
didn't
lost
you
there.
invite
So when
me?
you fall asleep in the mall and you're just like, they couldn't find her. She was in Splash Mountain for weeks.
I would like to be invited to Disneyland next time, please.
Well, if you're going to spend that long. Yeah, no. Nice? We would all love to go to Disneyland, especially in a pandemic-free world. I don't want to go too much into this because Michaela is still going through it, as everybody knows, and Sean, I think, is halfway through it, which is a shame because the second half is the better half by far. You're in the first case of the second one, right? Or you finished that?
Yep.
Yeah. So you're still about to get to all the stuff that even excels further, I think. The biggest complaint I think most people would have with the Ace Attorney series, if they like it, because some people will be like, I don't like this style of gameplay, visual novel, blah, 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 whatever. If you like the Ace Attorney series, the biggest complaint I think most people have had is that the middle cases of most games suck. The ones that are sort of like, here's a client we picked up along the way, and they don't really have any connection to anything, and it's just kind of like this fun, whimsical case that we do, and then eventually we get back to the stuff that really matters, which is usually the game's last case, where everything comes together, and it's all about the characters you care about, and everything's super tense and interesting. Great Ace Attorney Chronicles solved this problem by making every case relevant, and even the cases in the first game that do not seem relevant, spoiler alert, at least have some relevance down the road to where everything kind of ties together. And so you leave the experience of these 10 cases in 2 games that are basically one game going, yeah, everything I did had meaning. And that's been not the case in any other game I've played in this series. There's been at least one case where I've been like, man, that did nothing for me.
I love the music, and the jury thing is like the most... up there with the most fun I've ever had with an Ace Attorney game. What we should do is list all the games on, like when Dave has to do something stupid with his kids, like a bar mitzvah or something. We'll do, you, me, and Michaela. We'll rank all the Ace Attorney games. And
That's
that'll be
so
awesome.
offensive to an entire.
No, I mean, what? Like the kids' softball game or whatever stupid thing.
Basketball.
You do with
kids. I'm a coach for my kids' basketball team.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly.
Yeah, stupid thing like basketball. How dare you?
Yeah, but I would love to do that, and I would love to, but I need to finish it. So this, you liking it so much has kind of maybe accelerated what I'm going to do with it too. So that's great.
There's a lot of moments in the second game. And for those who are unfamiliar, it's basically 2 games in one. There's 2 5-case sets like any other game, but they're all tied together. It is impossible to separate them. Not only is it a direct sequel, but like one of the cases in the second game goes back in time in the middle of when the first game was happening. So it's all just one thing.
Yeah.
But what a ride. And now I've had enough time pass since I beat it to where I'm comfortable saying it's my favorite in the series. Because if that was just like I finished it last week, I don't know. It was almost 2 months ago. So
you're not going to Skyward Sword it?
No.
Which is also a game that came out this year.
Yeah, it was. I saw it on the list. I saw it on the list.
Skyward Sword. That would be so meta if you did it again.
5 out of 5.
I like Skyward Sword.
It's perfectly good.
Yes.
My number 1 is Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker.
Ah.
Because you were probably wondering, like, well, what's left? What else hasn't he talked about?
No, I had a feeling this was probably, unless you hated it.
Can't spoil a ton because Sean is going through post-Stormblood, so I can't really talk about the story. Yeah, you have not been on in a while.
Oh, yeah.
But what I can say in vagaries is it's better than Shadowbringers, which was the best expansion so far. It hits all the story notes you would expect for the conclusion of a 10-year arc. And more importantly, the gameplay has gotten all these classes to the point where almost all of them are fun to play. And that's not all done in Endwalker. Some of that is baby steps along the way. But nonetheless, it's to the point where it's like every class is viable. Every class has interesting tools. So it doesn't really matter what you play. And even if you're finding yourself on a whim, you can just change it at any time. It's the biggest thing the game has over World of Warcraft, where it's like, if you want to play something else, you switch to something else. No strings attached. You're not creating a brand new character from scratch with no gear and no resources. You just take a flight of fancy and try something new. The soundtrack is extravagant. Already, I would have picked 14 as the best video game soundtrack of all time because, I mean, it's kind of cheating. It's 1,000+ songs. It works in so many other songs from the rest of the series. But just the music from Endwalker itself is the best leitmotif they've done yet, and Soken's strength is weaving that motif in throughout a bunch of different songs. Like, here's a really soft, mellow one for a town, and here's a really metal one that's like for a boss fight. Just phenomenal. So, if you haven't picked up 14, you can't right now. But when the servers actually slow down to the point where it'll accept new players again, you probably should give it a look. You can play it for free at Through Heaven's Word. There's a whole meme about it.
The fetch quests kill me. And you're never going to get away totally from fetch quests, but like, what is the ratio of fetch quests to like meaningful quests in this one?
It's about the same as Shadowbringers, which is to say fetch quests are almost non-existent.
Hooray. That is so appealing to me.
Because like you said, you can't get rid of them entirely, but if you ever are doing it, it's usually for a vital story reason and not just some fluffy bullshit about you happen to pass a townsperson and they're like, I need 3 pieces of leather. And you're like, okay, I'm the warrior of light, and I just saved this whole universe from calamity, but yeah, I'll go get you 3 pieces of leather, you piece of shit.
Yeah, if it's like 3 crystals to protect the town and fortify the barrier, that's a fetch quest technically, but it's meaningful. If it's like flowers for my garden, that is what really bothers me.
But Sean, I need to make a pie, and I can't make a pie unless you pick 5 apples for me. So please, you're very tall. There's a tree over there. Please pick the apples.
That's the nicest thing Dave's ever said about me.
Wow.
That I'm very tall.
And Walker has one of the best story quests I've seen in any game, let alone the Final Fantasy franchise. It's a shame that they had to nerf the quest because some people found it to be too difficult. The difficulty was intended, and it's frustrating because Japanese developers bend over backwards trying to make sure the player base is happy, and the handful who complained vocally have now ruined that for other people. It was meant to be hard and make you feel despair, and its original form succeeded at that, but I at least got to play it in that incarnation, so all of it just tonally fits. Some of the locations are the best we've been to yet. Everybody knows about the moon, but there are other cool ones beside that, and it's really, really good.
I think it's so cool that they're drawing on the history of the series, which so often is completely disconnected. Mm-hmm. So you have like the moon and all these different areas that you're revisiting that were big themes in previous games. That's a big draw for me.
Yeah. That's my list.
I wish I could get into online games. I would love to, and I just never will.
It's a tough sell, and you don't have the time for it.
Nope.
So I can't even recommend it to you in the slightest.
Nope, I'd love to, but no. Yeah. Especially if I was playing like with you guys, it sounds great. But
maybe one day, we'll retire, and then we can do in the nursing home.
I mean, they have at least 10 more years of 14 mapped out. Although at some point they're going to have to go through a refresh and update this and abandon the PS3. But it still holds up okay graphically. That's not going to last another decade. But story-wise, I'm interested to see because this sort of closes out this entire arc up to this point. With these 2 gods and everything else that's happened, it's kind of an end cap that then leaves the door open for a brand new start. And if the same writing team that's done the last 2 expansions is going to tackle that, 100% on board.
And it's the guys who are now doing 16, which makes me so excited for 16.
Yep.
More than I would have been otherwise. I mean, Final Fantasy is one of my favorite series. So.
Yep.
Yeah, you can keep Nomura away from my Final Fantasy. Thanks. Bye-bye, Nomura. Stick to what you know, kid.
Wait, and you're doing great on 7 remake. So just
I don't
stay on that one.
Keep that coming out. I'd love to see that completed by this decade being finished.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if we could have that. I mean, we've just left Midgar and it's 2022, so we got to speed up a little bit if we're going to get to the end of the game by 2030. But maybe.
Yeah. Great. I want to do my list. Is all I care about. This is the thing I care about the most in the whole year.
Okay.
Honorable mention Bravely Default 2. I'm really only doing honorable mention because I'm so sad that I could not get Bravely Default 2 on the list. I love it, Dave. I still recommend it for you for like the class and the turn-based battles. Please play it someday. It's very good.
Yes, turn-based. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Yes.
Metroid Dread is my number 5. It's snuck on the list. I think because it's what I realized. The one thing I'll say that I haven't mentioned before is in previous Metroids, if you found it hard, it was always you were gonna take damage, and it was like a slugfest. There's very little I think you can do in the older Metroid games to like avoid all damage. It's just like the way that it works. You're gonna get hit.
I mean, unless you're a super pro.
Unless you're like incredible. Metroid Dread, it's so hard, and you're gonna get punished, and then you're gonna have a run where you're like, it's possible to dodge everything. Like it is possible for you to avoid all damage because I think a big part of that is the flash dash thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. So they've thought about everything. They built sequence breaking into the game. It's great. I don't know if I recommend it to Dave necessarily, but it's very good.
If he was going to play a Metroid game, it's not a bad one to start with.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's other things on his list he needs to do first.
So I just want to preface this with, at one point, all of these next 4 were number 1. As of like yesterday. I've gone through all of these. So like the number 4 is going to be disappointing, but at one point it was number 1. These are all very good. So Halo Infinite is so good. Dave, have you ever liked Halo before? Have you played it?
I played through the entire first and second one. and then never played 3. I don't know, like there's such a big gap in between 2 and 3 that I kind of like lost it. And I never bought an Xbox 360 till basically the Xbox One came out.
I think you would like this one because it's in a lot of ways a reboot. It's not actually a reboot, but it reboots a lot of things. You're back on a ring. You're back with your chipper, snarky AI helping you. There's like new enemies that you're fighting, but it's back to kind of like more Covenant based than like the Forerunners that Halo 4 and 5 did. But it's Halo in an open world for the most part, which is so fun. So you go from like base to base, liberating them, and then that creates a new like forward operating base. And then that's kind of how you progress through the game. So you just have so much freedom. And part of the freedom is you have a grapple hook, Dave. And it's something so small, but it completely changes the Halo experience. I use it. So it's left bumper to shoot it. I'm just like constantly left bumper. I use it for movement, just like going through the world. I use it for climbing. I use it for stealing ghosts from enemies. I use it to latch onto enemies. I use it to grab guns from across the map into my hand. It's so well done. And unlike something like Arkham, where it's pretty good, but you have to get that indicator that like you're allowed to latch onto this, and sometimes it gets wonky. You can latch on to anything. All surfaces are fair game, and it's just like magical. It just feels so good.
To a lesser extent, I remember that in Ocarina of Time when I got the grappling hook. I'm like, shoot, go, awesome.
Yeah, this is like that, but evolved like by a million because it's like limitless.
It's like everything Bionic Commando wanted to be, but good.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Yeah, Doug, you're absolutely right. Like there are other parts, and I'm like, whatever. There's an upgrade system in Halo for the first time ever. I poured everything in the grapple hook immediately, and shield. I mean, shields. You have to.
Yeah, you want to live.
You have to take care of your health.
Sure.
But then, yeah, that's the best upgrade by far. So Halo Infinite, very good. Deathloop. I reviewed it pretty much on the show. It's excellent. It loses a little bit of steam at the end because you're so powerful. They're like, okay, I'm ready. And then there's an element where you figured out what to do, but you kind of have to do it on the game's specific terms. So all the creativity that you had before, you're kind of locked into a certain way to do it. I know why they had to do it that way, but that's just all good. Goes to say it loses a little bit of steam at the end. But man, what an experience, especially in those like first 5 hours or so. Just absolutely riveting. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time trying to figure out this mystery, and it's a really cool world. It's awesome. And it's already on your list, Dave.
It is. It's something I want to play. So.
Okay. Dave, I want you to listen to this one. Stop being on your phone. Listen to me. Inscription. Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay. So the less I say about it, honestly, the better. It's a deck building roguelike with a little bit of horror and like thriller mixed in. And that's just the start of it. And then it like evolves.
You've said a lot of words already.
Yeah.
And there's a mystery that you're trying to solve. There's puzzle solving. So you're on like a table, and it's like there's a scary guy that you can only see his eyes, and you're like playing this game, and he wants to kill you if you lose. And but you can get up from the table and like explore around this cabin, and there are like little like escape the room puzzles to solve that play into the game that you're playing with the guy. And then that's just act 1 is what I'll say. And then like it gets crazy. There's so much to it, and I don't want to spoil too much. If one person hears me talk about it and decides to give it a try, that's enough for me. So please give it a shot. Okay.
Description with a Y.
Returnal's my number 1. I mean, it just is. I've talked about it to death. It's excellent. Please go play it. It's still to this day is the game's like, that's why I bought a PS5. It showcases everything about a PS5 that's awesome. That's all. Right. That's my list. 2021. Pretty good. Pretty good year.
Yeah, you have 30 seconds to talk about the year.
I don't think anyone's going to go back and say 2021 was the best of in any of these categories.
No.
But it was really solid, and I got a lot of really good stuff out of it. And like, not just like there's one good game and then like 4 or whatever. It's like there's a lot of great games. They're all like equally good.
It was a really slow start. As I was going through my games of the year and looking at what was even going to be in contention, January through March was pretty bad. But when we allow for the pandemic and everything, the effects that had over time, like, it makes sense. Considering we were all in a global pandemic for the development time of 2020 and most of 2021, I think it was probably as good as you could have hoped.
I feel like this year had something kind of for everybody, and I think that was reflected in our lists. Whether you talk about, an Ace Attorney game, you talk about Returnal, you talk about a kids show, you talk about Squid Game, like Marvel movies, and then Disney movies also being on Sean's top five. It's like it feels like no matter who you were, there was an opportunity to find something that you could grab onto this year.
That's true. But man, it was the year of the roguelite. Roguelite, however you want to say it. Some like 3 of my top 5 were basically that genre.
Yep.
And then that's not even counting Hades, which like technically in some platforms came out this year and others. So I'm excited for what comes next year.
And man, TV's in such a good place right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's something for everybody. There's a lot of really, really high quality stuff coming out. We mentioned a lot of them. Didn't even bring up like The Witcher, which a lot of people have enjoyed, especially for season 2. Mm-hmm. Not that person. Like Succession, Yellowstone, shows that Dave brought up. Like there's a lot of stuff out there that's both critically and fan acclaimed. So I mean, if you're into TV, I don't know if it's a golden age. It's a little too early to be calling it that, but a lot of good things going on.
Age, so maybe this could be like the platinum age though, because it really is. It's not just like there's a Game of Thrones and like a bunch of okay stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's so much great stuff.
The thing is, I think the people who watch TV have such more of a critical eye that they're not willing to put up with two and a half men anymore. Big Bang Theory, stuff like that. Like, yes, there's going to be cheap, easy TV shows like Fuller House came out and like people watch that, but like that's not the goal anymore. Like there is just so much good content and smart writers out there who know how to write a compelling story and get people interested in it and stay interested in it. It's amazing how good a lot of shows are.
Well, because even look at something like Cobra Kai, which is like not trying to like win an Oscar. It's an Emmy for TV. But it, like you said, it's so smart and they know exactly what they're doing. And within those confines, they're very, very good at it. Mm-hmm. And they're hitting all the right buttons. And yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. So like now we're even getting on shows like that, like the blockbuster shows are now this new level of intelligence. And it's really fun.
Mm-hmm. And while I thought the Marvel shows were a mixed bag this year, I thought were all good, but I liked some more than others. Like the fact that they're also in the fray on this, I mean, what more can you ask for? You've got heavy hitters like that in the mix, traditional TV, big time dramas, like, man.
Yeah, the Marvel shows, I hope they find their stride. Loki was great. Some of the others were okay. But they're finally delivering on that promise of characters from the movies coming to the TV show.
Yeah.
Characters on the TV show soon to be making it back into the movies. Like, this is what I wanted for so long. Not the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They're like, yeah, like, kind of exists, but it's like over there. So this is much better.
Yeah, kind of wonder what it would be like if they tried to release that show now. If they would change things, do it better, do it different. Not that it was a bad show, but like you said, it was sort of distanced from this whole universe. Like, it held it off at arm's length because they wanted it to be its own thing. It's like, maybe you should just embrace the fact that everybody loves this whole entire universe.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
All right, that is the end of the episode. There's more we could talk about on that subject, but we can always do it later. That's not like it's not evergreen. So,
yeah. The Suns in 2021, how awesome that was. That was a media thing, so yay.
Yeah, the Suns almost had the most wins in a calendar year, which is a completely arbitrary, dumbass stat. But
it is.
They were like one short because they didn't win the finale of 2021 or whatever. But Suns were great. We had a good time. I'm sure we'll have a Suns cast coming up relatively soon because there's a lot to go over. But we'll see if we can get the team back from COVID protocols first and go from there.
Monty's back.
Next week, we'll be back with a regular episode. I don't even know what we're going to tackle yet. There's a few things on our agenda, but we'll see. Regular time, same Tuesday. No weeks off coming up anytime soon. So we'll see you then. In between shows, find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com or youtube.com/objectionnetwork for new videos whenever me and Michaela record them. See you next time.